On 5 News, getting down to the business of Brexit. David Cameron meets EU leaders for the first time since the referendum result and says we mustn't turn our backs on Europe. But there's angry scenes as Nigel Farage is jeered at an emergency meeting of the European Parliament.
When I came here 17 years ago and I said that I wanted to lead a campaign to get Britain to leave the European Union, you all laughed at me. Well, I have to say, you're not laughing now, are you?
Also, a fresh crisis for Jeremy Corbyn.
Isn't it finally time to quit, Mr. Corbyn? How can you
He loses a vote of confidence among his own MPs by a huge margin. The schoolgirl murdered after being groomed on Facebook. Her family say they're devastated.
We ask ourselves every day why? Why Kaylee? Why did this happen to our beautiful daughter?
And England head home after their embarrassing defeat by Iceland. So, was it their worst performance ever?
I'm very fragile today. It wasn't a good night for anybody because we wanted to stay in this tournament. We wanted to do well.
Hello and welcome to 5 News. I'm Sian Williams. 4 days after that momentous vote to leave the EU, and the Prime Minister is in Brussels having what might be a rather uncomfortable dinner with other European leaders who are unhappy with the result and the timetable to go. He's not invited to their talks tomorrow on Britain's exit. Meanwhile, UKIP's leader, Nigel Farage, took a more confrontational approach at the European Parliament, with his speech greeted with jeers, cheers and boos. From Brussels, our political editor, Andy Bell, reports.
He didn't like Brussels summits at the best of times, and this is not the best of times. But he does need some help for what comes next.
While we're leaving the European Union, we mustn't be turning our backs on Europe. These countries are our neighbours, our friends, our allies, our partners, and I very much hope we'll seek the closest possible relationship in terms of trade and cooperation and security.
Those partners, like the President of the European Commission, do seem ready to give Britain some more time before starting the formal process. But they do want to get on with it.
Europe is ready to start the divorce process even today, without any enthusiasm, as you can imagine. This is not the scenario we were dreaming about.
And the most powerful politician in Europe was pretty clear this morning too. Chancellor Merkel of Germany said any deal giving the UK access to the single market would have to include free movement of people.
For more than 40 years in places like this, the UK flag has flown alongside those of the European Union. We are at the start of a long process, but presumably, at the end of it, that flag will be hauled down.
One man who's dreamed of that moment was enjoying himself in the European Parliament today.
You know, when I came here 17 years ago and I said that I wanted to lead a campaign to get Britain to leave the European Union, you all laughed at me. Well, I have to say, you're not laughing now, are you? Now I know that virtually none of you have ever done a proper job in your lives.
He was booed and the President of the Commission mocked him.
I'm really surprised that you are here. You were fighting for the exit. The British people voted in favour of the exit. Why are you here?
But he didn't mind. And one MEP from Scotland made a heartfelt plea.
But please remember this. Scotland did not let you down. Please, I beg you, chers collègues, do not let Scotland down now.
Earlier, the British EU Commissioner in charge of financial services was given a warm send-off. He resigned after the referendum result. Almost certainly this is the last time he'll be in this photo. He has started this process, but whoever follows him will finish it.
Well, Andy, the European leaders want to know what the likely timetable is for Britain's exit. Do we know it?
Well, the European governments seem to have accepted one of David Cameron's key points, which is that the formal negotiating process should not start until there is a new UK Prime Minister, and that won't happen before September. Now, at that point, the pressure will grow for Britain to start the formal negotiations, to trigger Article 50 of the Lisbon Treaty, as it's known, and that is the 2-year negotiating process where Britain negotiates with the 27 other countries. Now, it is completely within the British government's gift as to when they trigger that, but the sense you get here is that other governments, once that UK Prime Minister, new Prime Minister is in place, they will expect Britain to get on with that negotiating process, which, as I say, is supposed to last 2 years.
So a very challenging day, I imagine, for the Prime Minister in Brussels. Meantime, over here, people are lining up for his job.
Yes. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we've had any specific formal recommendations that people are throwing their hats into the ring, but we're expecting a lot of names to come out very soon. Boris Johnson, obviously, Theresa May, the Home Secretary, Stephen Crabb, the Work and Pensions Secretary, people like Michael Gove, the Justice Secretary, obviously a prominent Leave campaigner. We're not expecting him to go for the leadership, probably more likely to work with Boris Johnson. There are other names. Nicky Morgan, the Education Secretary, may well go for it as well. So there could well be a lot of names in there, but they haven't got long to make up their minds because the formal process has to be underway by lunchtime on Thursday.
Andy, thank you. Back home, the fallout continues for the Labour Party. In the last half hour, Jeremy Corbyn has been given an overwhelming vote of no confidence from his MPs. That's after a string of resignations from his shadow cabinet yesterday, with yet another frontbencher quitting this morning. But Mr Corbyn still insists that he's not going anywhere. Catherine Jones is in Westminster. Catherine, what more can you tell us about this vote of no confidence?
Well, the votes are just in, and it's an astonishing message from Labour's elected politicians. 172 Labour MPs say they have no confidence in their leader. Just 40 have supported him. There is no word yet on what Mr Corbyn's response is going to be, but if the last 48 hours are anything to go by, he'll continue to tough it out.
Isn't it finally time to quit, Mr Corbyn? How can you survive a vote of no confidence, Mr Corbyn?
Starting another day as leader of the Labour Party. His last day if many of Jeremy Corbyn's own MPs had their way. In a show of defiance, Mr Corbyn invited cameras in to film the first meeting of his new shadow cabinet.
We've had a very frank, very interesting and I think very productive shadow cabinet meeting. This country faces a crisis in the economy.
2/3 of these shadow ministers have only just taken up their roles, thrust into the limelight after mass resignations hollowed out Labour's top team.
Don't let those people who wish us ill divide us.
It followed a demonstration outside Parliament last night when thousands rallied to Mr Corbyn's cause. But despite this display of grassroots support, another shadow minister added his name to the list of deserters today.
Because he got a mandate, I thought, yes, I'll support him, yes, I'll be part of his team. But I'm afraid the last year has shown what I guess we suspected, that he's not the man for that job.
Yet, addressing the Prime Minister only yesterday, Mr Corbyn made it clear he's not budging.
We thank him for his service, although I'm sure we will enjoy many more debates and disagreements while he continues as Prime Minister.
And despite their determined efforts to oust him, Labour's MPs cannot force Jeremy Corbyn to go.
So, Catherine, what happens next?
Well, we have now received a statement from Jeremy Corbyn's office. In it, he says he will not betray the party's members by resigning. So, as expected, he is going to tough it out. The big question now for the MPs across there who've tried to oust him is, do they take this further? Do they find a candidate to unite around to oppose him? The talk was earlier that might be Angela Eagle or Tom Watson. Do they then ask the membership to choose between those two people? Remember, the last time they asked the party membership, Mr Corbyn was overwhelmingly voted in. Potentially what might happen now is that they might go through that extremely damaging process, having decimated the expertise of their own frontbench team, and end up with the same leader at the end of it all.
Catherine, thank you. A Labour MP who received death threats for supporting the Remain campaign says she won't stand for Parliament again. Pat Glass was appointed Shadow Education Secretary only yesterday. Last week, police told her to avoid public spaces after threats were sent to her and her family. The Chancellor, George Osborne, today confirmed he will put up taxes and cut spending within months. George Osborne says the Leave vote has caused a prolonged period of economic adjustment that's already having an impact on public finances. Today, the market stabilised after days of turmoil, with the pound also rising against the dollar after falling to its lowest level for 3 decades. The Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon has announced she'll travel to Brussels for talks tomorrow. She told the Scottish Parliament today she's not seeking endorsement for a second referendum on independence just yet, but she says she is determined that Scotland's relationship with Europe is protected. Today's other news now, and 2 men are facing life in prison after a 15-year-old girl was murdered after being groomed online. Kaylee Haywood's body was found in a field in Leicestershire last November, 5 days after she went missing. The 2 men have been convicted of charges including murder, rape and false imprisonment. Louise Beale reports.
Those who knew 15-year-old Kaylee Haywood said she was a bright and bubbly teenager. She met Luke Harlow online, chatting to him on Facebook. But when she went to meet him in person, he plied her with alcohol and sexually assaulted her. He then allowed his neighbour, Stephen Beedman, to come over. Beedman later raped and murdered Kaylee. Beedman eventually pleaded guilty to Kaylee's murder and rape, and Harlow to child grooming and sex with a child, but both denied false imprisonment. Yesterday, Beedman was found guilty of that charge. Today, Harlow was too. Speaking outside court, Kaylee's family said they were devastated.
We ask ourselves every day why? Why Kaylee? Why did this happen to our beautiful daughter? Today we have justice for our beautiful daughter, but that doesn't change anything for us. We have to live with the heartache forever.
Kaylee disappeared back in November after telling her parents she was staying with a friend. We now know she went to Harlow's home, believing they were in a secret relationship. But when she tried to escape, Beedman took her to a park and raped her. Her body wasn't found until 5 days later in a field. She died from head and facial injuries. Whilst officers had been searching for her, Beedman denied he knew where she was.
If you know her, if you indeed know where she is, to tell us right now at the beginning of the day.
No, I don't.
You don't know where she is?
I don't know where she is. I met her Saturday night.
Kaylee's family now say they will campaign for better online safety to try to stop other children falling prey to online predators. Both men will be sentenced on Friday. Louise Beale, 5 News.
And still to come on the programme. Victory, Iceland style. That commentator does it again and... Wimbledon fever hits. Can Scot Andy Murray give England something to cheer about? All that and more after the break. Hello and welcome back. You're watching 5 News. The royal family could be facing something of a pay cut as the government reviews the amount they receive from the taxpayer. Next year, the royals are set to get more than £45 million, which works out at just over 60 pence per person. That's up nearly 50% in just 4 years. Our royal correspondent Simon Vigar reports.
Out and about visiting Northern Ireland today as the royal accounts came under close scrutiny. But it's the Queen's sense of humour which has also been noted.
Are you well?
Thank you very much. I'm still alive.
Nice to see you again.
Well, I'm still alive, she told Deputy First Minister and former IRA man Martin McGuinness. Booming property prices mean the Crown Estate, which includes all of Regent Street, gave the Treasury £304 million last year. The Queen gets 15% cash back called the Sovereign Grant. That works out at £43 million, and it is under review.
I think it would be difficult for 15% to stay or increase, because I think that would mean the Queen would get a 6.5% pay rise in the next review of funding. I think that would be hard to sell to the nation, but there's so much uncertainty. The Royal Trustees are David Cameron, George Osborne and Sir Alan Reid, the Keeper of the Privy Purse. The Prime Minister's going, we don't know who the next Chancellor will be in the next few months, so it's all very uncertain for the Palace.
Yes, Brexit is even having an impact on the royal purse strings. Of course, repairs to the palaces and travel and security do not come cheap. But ultimately, your view of the institution will affect whether you think they're worth it. Simon Viger, 5 News.
The controversial high-speed rail link could be delayed by another year. A National Audit Office report says the £56 billion HS2 project has an unrealistic timetable and that it may not be possible to open the first phase between London and the West Midlands by 2026. The former England manager, Roy Hodgson, faced the media today saying he was feeling very fragile and that it hadn't been a good night. He resigned after England crashed out of the Euros in spectacular fashion, losing to Iceland, the lowest-ranked team left in the tournament, a result which maintained what Roy Hodgson called a wretched record. Let's go now to Peter Lane, who's in Nice. Peter, what did you make of what Roy Hodgson had to say?
Well, he's been personal, he's been honest, that's all he can do right now. He's talked about feeling sad and sorry and says there's no quick answer for what went wrong. The fans who travelled out here are feeling somewhat shortchanged. The players who woke up in Nice this morning are still feeling the nightmare of last night. This is not the bus you want to be on. As the England squad left their hotel in Nice this morning, there was no mistaking the mood. And if a picture paints 1,000 words, Roy Hodgson's face said so much. Just round the corner, England fans Seb and Joe waited for their bus to the airport, summing up the sentiments of so many.
Bitterly disappointed. As a fan, I've just spent so much money on this tournament.
It's not good enough, you know, and the money invested in the FA and the money invested in Roy Hodgson and the money these players earn, when you see the return, it just doesn't add up.
It added up to begin with when England went ahead. But underdogs Iceland swiftly pulled it level, leaving Rooney and co detached, desperate and disorganised. Deal done by a second Iceland goal. At the final whistle, Iceland ecstatic. Their commentator off the scale. England broken. Their manager out of a job.
I'm really disappointed. I didn't see the defeat coming. As far as I'm concerned now, I'm an ex-England manager and I can only wish the new England manager the best of luck. And I think, as I said in my statement, I'm leaving behind a good group of players to work with.
In Nice today, the only ones enjoying the ride are Iceland's supporters.
You'll never forget what happened here.
No. Never. Once in a lifetime opportunity here. And we took it, yeah.
You delivered.
Yeah, we delivered, that's true. And it's probably the biggest sports moment in the history of Iceland.
But it's a very different picture on the Promenade des Anglais, where England fans are packing up and walking away with memories of where it all went so wrong. Peter Lane, 5 News, Nice.
So that leaves Wales as the last home nation in the Euros. For tennis fans, though, there are still plenty of British players flying the flag at Wimbledon. Early days, of course, but today it was guaranteed at least one Brit would reach the second round, with Andy Murray taking on Liam Brodie, a player ranked 6th in the country and 235th in the world. Minnie Stevenson reports.
Can there be anything more British than queuing and camping for the tennis? Even the Wimble dogs were marking their territory early doors. As the bubbles were flowing, the excitement was rising.
Try and contain yourselves, but can you just tell me how excited you are to be here?
So excited! Even queuing is cool. You know, I don't mind queuing for something like this.
Cool.
Yeah.
This is so British. How excited are you to be going to Wimbledon?
Very excited. 6 o'clock this morning, excited.
6 a.m? Yeah. That's like going on holiday excited.
Yeah. That's it.
It's very British, isn't it?
Yeah.
Quintessentially British.
And no wonder they're excited as Andy Murray for the first time took on another Brit at Wimbledon. Underdog Liam Brodie faced the former champion on centre court, and naturally Murray walked the first 2 sets. So for non-tennis anoraks, you may ask, who is Liam Brodie? Well, the 22-year-old is ranked 235th in the world, compared to Andy Murray's status as number 2. As a relative newcomer, Liam has never won a title, while Murray has won 37. One former Wimbledon champion told 5 News there can be no greater stage than centre court.
It's the most special centre court in the world, and you know, you want to play your best tennis. So there's always pressure. It doesn't matter if you're underdog or just enjoying and trying to enjoy it.
But the pressure of centre court and facing a champion proved too much. As Kim watched on, Murray beat Brodie in straight sets. Nevertheless, a rare battle between 2 Brits at Wimbledon. A victory for UK tennis all round. Minnie Stevenson, 5 News.
Now, before we go, Matt has joined us to tell us what's coming up on 5 News tonight. Hello there.
Hi, Sean. Quiet day, isn't it? Quiet day. Yeah, not at all. We've been taking a closer look, actually, at the crisis that is now engulfing the Labour Party after Jeremy Corbyn lost a vote of no confidence amongst Labour MPs. We'll speak to a Corbyn supporter who's just been given a job by him, and also hear from a former party advisor who says he should now go, which he is defying in the last few minutes. Also, could this woman tell us a thing or two about team performance and England as well, and also delivering under pressure? Double Olympic gold medalist Laura Trott talks to me about getting it right at the highest level at 6:30.
Look forward to that. Thank you, Matt. That is it for us for now, though. Sian Welby has the weather next. I'll see you again tomorrow at 5. Matt's back in an hour. Thanks for watching today. Goodbye for now.